Oscar Piastri has been screwed by McLaren in two mega ways in the 2025 Formula One season. We will talk about the two ways, and we will also talk about what Piastri needs to do to take revenge for this betrayal. So, the two areas in which McLaren fucked Oscar Piastri in the 2025 Formula One season are racing and making him pay for the team's mistakes. And I'm going to give you some evidence of both. So, in terms of racing, whenever Oscar Piastri is about to attack Lando Norris, he had a tire advantage or a pace advantage or whatever it is, the team immediately calls him up and say that, hey, remember how we go racing, papaya rules. Basically what they mean is, don't crash into the team's favorite driver, Lando Norris. You are expendable number 2 piece of human garbage. That's basically the emotional undertone of the message. But what they say is, remember how we go racing. And we heard this twice. I mean, we may have heard this more times, but 2 times I remember it very vividly. In Austria, in Red Bull Ring, there are 3 DRS zones, so Oscar Piastri technically had an advantage when he was attacking Lando Norris, who was leading the race. For the first 20 laps, Oscar was putting the pressure on Lando. He was told on the radio by his race engineer, remember how we go racing. And when he attacked Lando a little bit too much, he locked up into turn 4. And immediately after that lockup, he got the radio message once again, right? The team was like, if he tries to put a 50-50 move and crashes into our favorite driver, Lando Norris, Zach Brown won't be able to get some sleep for next 7 days. Something like that. We heard similar message again in 2025 Hungarian Grand Prix, where Lando Norris, who was on a 1-stop, he was leading the race. Oscar Piastri was on a 2-stop. He had the tire advantage towards the end of the race and he was attacking Lando. There also we heard the message, hey, remember how we go racing, you dimwit, don't fucking crash into our favorite driver. I am only your race engineer because Lando's race engineer is occupied. If that position was available, I will be race engineering for him, not you. You are expendable. Fuck you. You are number 2 driver. That's basically what he said in terms of the emotionality of the message. But broadly, in Hungarian Grand Prix 2025, when Oscar Piastri was chasing Lando Norris with fresher tires that had more life and pace in them, he got the same message. Piastri also locked up into the braking zone into turn 1 while attempting to make the overtake. And immediately after the lockup, he got the same message from the team once more. Remember, be cautious how we go racing. Now jump cut to 2025 Singapore Grand Prix. Right? Lando Norris bumped wheels with Oscar Piastri, shoved him off the way. That was hard racing, I totally agree. Got ahead, maintained the pace, had the place, didn't give it back. And the team not even once said it to Lando that that's not how we go racing. That's not what papaya rules is all about. They didn't say it to him once. Oscar Piastri was having a full-blown conversation with his race engineer. He said that Lando crashed into me, got a position ahead, and we're not going to do the swap. I could have stuck there. I backed off when Lando was coming in hot, even though he shoved me off. I didn't fight it too hard at the time because I didn't want to risk the crash. It was the start of the race. I didn't want to risk a double DNF. You're not even going to tell him anything? Forget about the swapping at this point in 2025 Singapore Grand Prix. Forget about the swap. You didn't even tell Lando that that was a fucked up thing to do. Unbelievable. So that was the first way in which the papaya rules people fucked Oscar Piastri. When he is attacking Lando, it seems that he needs to be very cautious and careful and wary of the papaya rules. Remember how you go racing. That's the fucking dog shit of a sentence these motherfuckers use. But when Lando Norris literally causes a collision with Oscar Piastri, moves ahead, he doesn't even get a slap on the wrist. He doesn't get told on the radio, hey, that was too close for comfort. If it happens again, if a situation comes up like that again, don't do it. Now, in terms of the incident, I think it was a racing incident, good hard racing. That's what we want to see. But that's not what papaya people want. That's not what papaya rules is about. Papaya rules is about just race, but don't make contact, don't crash, don't collide, don't be too aggressive, don't attempt 50-50 moves in tight street circuits. Those are the papaya rules. It's their rules, not mine. So even though Lando Norris clearly broke the racing papaya rules, he was not even given a slap in the wrist. But Oscar Piastri, every time it appeared that he was challenging Lando Norris, he was reminded of remember how we go racing. So that's the first way in which the McLaren team is biased against Oscar Piastri. The second way is making Oscar pay for the mistakes of the team. To understand this, we have to go all the way back to the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. There are 2 Italian Grand Prix, so I have to be clear that it was occurring in the Temple of Speed, Monza. Now, in Monza Grand Prix, Oscar Piastri was the slower McLaren throughout the weekend. And Lando Norris was P2, Oscar Piastri was P3. They were cruising along. Looks like it'll be a McLaren double podium. Verstappen was too far ahead. He was too quick, out of the equation. 2 and 3 for McLaren, not bad. Then it was time to do the pit stops. First, they decided that Lando should pit first, then Oscar, because Lando was the leading car. But then papaya people decided to pit Oscar first because they wanted to cover for Leclerc, who was behind Oscar Piastri. Now, to make things clear, Leclerc was never a threat. But because the McLaren engineers and pit wall people are a bunch of pussies, they want to be extra cautious. You know, even when talking to a girl, they probably, I'm not going to say that, whatever. So they're extra cautious, right? That's the main thing to remember. They decided to pit Oscar Piastri first because they wanted to cover up Leclerc because they are a bunch of pussies and Leclerc was never really a threat. So either way, pit Oscar first, Oscar comes out, smooth pit stop, everything's fine. Lando comes into the pits the next lap. The front left gun gets stuck and Oscar goes past Lando, overtakes him because of the slow stop, and Lando rejoins the race behind Oscar. The McLarens were still 2 and 3. Cumulatively, they're going to bring home the same amount of points, but in a different order. They got swapped. The team made a mistake in the pit stops. It was the team's call to pit Oscar first. Leclerc was never really a threat. I just said it. They pit Oscar first to cover Leclerc, who was never really a threat, and then Lando came in next. Team made a mistake. They fucked up the pit stop. Lando was behind. And then they asked Oscar to slow down and let Lando by. And then they were free to race. Because papaya rules, things need to be fair. Team made a mistake of a slow pit stop, and slow pit stop is a part of racing. So this is what transpired in Monza. When the team had a slow pit stop, the car ahead had to get the fuck out of the way so that the other car would go through. Now in Singapore, the reverse happened, right? Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri were again front and back. Lando was P3, Oscar is P4. Oscar Piastri's pit stop was 3 seconds extra long. And before going into the pits, Oscar was, I think, 3 seconds behind Lando. And after he came out of the pits, because of the slow pit stop, he was like 8 seconds slower or something like that behind Lando Norris. The team did not tell Lando to lift off so that Oscar can be 3 seconds closer. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri they were like this. After the pit stop, they were like this. They didn't tell Lando to lift up so that Oscar can close up, and then, they should resume driving normally, and then they're like free to race. That call didn't happen. Don't you think that's a little bit hypocritical? When Lando is in a disadvantageous position because of a pit stop, you are very eager to tell Oscar to get the fuck out of the way, to let the team favorite, by, so that the effect is neutralized, even though it was the team's fault. And by the way, in Monza, when you had the time for one car to slow down to make the swap, Leclerc is never going to be a threat. Just saying. But in Singapore, when the reverse happened, and here nobody's even telling to do a swap, it's about maintaining the gap between the two drivers in a proper way. Even that didn't happen. So Oscar Piastri must be thinking to himself at this point, like, hey, it seems like the rules are a little bit different to me. For me, every time I attack Lando, I've been reminded of the papaya racing rules. Lando just hit me and went past, went on the podium, celebrated there with the team. I was in the TV pen. Nobody gave a fuck about me. And he didn't even get a slap on the wrist. Also, when Lando has a slow pit stop, I've been told to slow down and get the fuck out of the way and give him track position. Even though he's my championship rival. I lost crucial 3 important championship points to him. That has been the difference in many championship battles. Less than that, actually. And he wouldn't even lift off for me when I had a slow pit stop of 3 seconds. Piastri lost 3 seconds dead on in the pit stop itself. He wasn't asking for a position swap or anything. The papaya rules are clearly different for both of the drivers. Now, after realizing this, after realizing that the team has a clear favorite and Oscar Piastri is the number 2 driver, even though he is the championship leader who has contributed the maximum amount of points for McLaren so that they could win the Constructors' Championship 2nd year in a row with 6 races to go. Even though Oscar has done all of that, I think he is the only driver who has like a hat trick of wins. Either way, even though Oscar has done all of that, Oscar must realize that right now it's clear that you are the number 2 driver. You are to be expended. You are expendable if it means Lando will have a better result. That's it. Now, how do you deal with it? How do you curb with it? How do you navigate the situation? The first thing is, Piastri needs to win the World Championship, obviously, but he needs to dominate Lando like Max Verstappen dominates his teammates. Lando Norris, for the remaining 6 races, should finish at least 10 seconds behind Oscar Piastri if both of the McLarens are finishing 1-2. That's what needs to happen. Oscar needs to put a couple of tenths between him and Lando in qualifying, and multiple seconds, 10 plus seconds in the race. I don't care what it takes. Let go of all of the social obligations. Go to the simulator and go to the track, and go to the simulator and go to the track. That's all you need to do in order to have the advantage. We have a week's break now before the United States Grand Prix. Do it. Explain it to your girlfriend that shit is now personal and this needs to be handled in the Michael Jordan way. Lando needs to be humiliated, not because it's his fault. In all seriousness, I feel that Lando is a nice guy, but it's the team, right? You need to hurt Lando's mind and his psyche in order to hurt Zach Brown and Andres Stella, piece of shits, because they have been fucking with you. So, the first thing that Oscar Piastri needs to do in order to retaliate and navigate the situation is to destroy Lando Norris's confidence. Valtteri Bottas, after spending many years with Lewis Hamilton, once said, and he said it in an interview or a podcast, I don't remember, but he said that I always wondered why I couldn't beat Lewis. And then he explains that Lewis's baseline pace is just so high that maybe in a track or two I'll have the advantage, but usually he's just a very quick person. That's exactly what Lando needs to think. And Valtteri went into depression during that period of time, briefly. You can see it in his face. That's what needs to happen to Lando. When Oscar Piastri beats him, dominates him weekend after weekend for the next 6 weekends, 2 tenths, 3 tenths between him and Lando in qualifying and multiple seconds in the main race, that's going to break Lando and that's going to hurt the papaya people, the pussies. That's the first thing. The second thing that Oscar Piastri needs to do is that when he wins the race, not the race, the championship, when he becomes the 2025 Formula One world champion, he needs to go and talk to the media and say, not bad for a second driver. That's what he needs to say. This is critical now. This is personal, as I mentioned. He needs to go to the media, and maybe on the radio it'll be epic. On his cool down lap, when Zach Brown, for media purposes, he will come in and congratulate Oscar Piastri, right? By masking the pain in his heart because Lando didn't win the world championship. He famously said, right, we are living in the Lando Norris era, for fuck's sake. But when Zach Brown comes and says him on the radio that, hey, Oscar, congratulations, even though I didn't want you to win, you need to say, not bad for a second driver, right? Because that's what his teacher, his guru, said it a long time ago when he was battling Sebastian Vettel. So that's the second thing Oscar Piastri needs to do. The first thing is dominate Lando Norris like Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton do it to others. And number two is say not bad for a second driver after you win the championship in front of the media to cause like a PR shitstorm. Just do that. It's fun. The third thing he needs to do is to leave the team and go to Mercedes. George Russell still doesn't have a contract. Mercedes, since the time they have rejoined Formula One in 2012, I think, 13, 11, 12, whatever, they always had a world champion. First it was Michael Schumacher, then it was Lewis Hamilton. 2025 is the only year in Mercedes history, I'm talking about the history in 21st century, they didn't have a world champion. And George Russell doesn't have a contract yet. If you dominate Lando Norris the way I just explained, then he will get a call from Toto. Russell will be out. Kimi Antonelli will stay. Toto Wolff actually publicly gave a statement that Kimi Antonelli will be staying in Mercedes for 2026. So one seat is actually confirmed. George Russell, he is doing everything he can, but F1 is a brutal sport and sacrifices need to be made for Oscar Piastri to complete his revenge arc. So that's the third thing that he needs to do. He needs to leave him and go to the Mercedes. This is the whole picture, right? In conclusion, the betrayal from McLaren should not be taken lightly by the Australian championship leader, soon to be world champion. And he needs to take it personally to dominate Norris so that his confidence gets shattered, so that the team and the papaya rule makers get hurt, emotionally distressed. Then he needs to rub it in their face by saying that not bad for a second driver, and for his grand finale, steal the Mercedes seat underneath George Russell for 2026 and beyond. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.